Greetings, YouTube. This is Fragments of Memory, aka the Armchair Philosopher. And I am responding to a Black Energy News. She recently discussed her exchange with another YouTuber by the name of Harvey Superboy. Now, she was very complimentary of the gentleman, but she was discussing his vid regarding Oprah Winfrey. And her video in response to this is Black people want super Negroes. And she was just discussing the phenomena, and I've noticed this, and comments have been made between me and other Black people. It seems that when a Black person gets rich, gets wealthy, attains some affluence, they leave the neighborhoods that they came from and they live in another neighborhood. And many Blacks that are in the poorer situations or not as affluent situations tend to hold a lot of resentment within themselves regarding these Black people. They're like, hey man, why'd you forget about us in the neighborhood? Steve Harvey touched a little bit on this, and he says, hey, when I got famous and I got away from all the negative influences that were stopping me, and I started making my money, I said, hey, I want to keep my nice things and do my nice things. So I moved into a neighborhood where I can enjoy my nice things. So I can kind of see where that brother's coming from. Because there are brothers and sisters that really want to do some things and they go out and do it. And then there's brothers and sisters who don't want to do anything, aren't about anything, and all they do is expect someone to come and rescue them. So that was very interesting that you discussed that a little bit. How Blacks are looking for that savior, that superhero, that messiah, a Black Jesus, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Buddha, Pharaoh God, conscious, floating on a lily pad type of person to just rescue them from whatever mistakes they've made. Now, when you discussed Oprah's supposed to shoulder the burden of carrying the entire Black race on her shoulders, and I agree with you there that that ain't possible. You cannot shoulder the burden of the Black population in America. And I've taken my notes. So if my notes seem a little scattered, or if I seem a little scattered and tossed about, it's because my notes are slightly that way. One thing you pointed out, Black people are simply minded, i.e., we're concerned with what's going on with the Black issues, where Oprah targets a broader audience. Now, I can't really get with you on the whole zodiac sign thing, because that's not what I subscribe to. But you did make a good point that Oprah Winfrey having a humanitarian essence about her, a humanitarian spirit, for lack of a better term, that she would go out and try to help everybody, black, white, purple, green, blue, whatever. Where many of us Blacks are merely concerned about us, Black people. And we think of the world in terms of Black and white folk. White folk, Black folk, white folk, Black folk. That seems to be our dichotomy. And there are many Blacks, especially here where I'm from in the Midwest, where many of them, we have that mentality where we only know about our block, our neighborhood, maybe the couple of streets that make up our hood. That's all we know about, and that's all we care about. Where I've noticed that white people in general tend to learn about other cultures, even if they themselves don't travel to other countries. They do study about other cultures. Even people overseas study about other cultures and other political systems. We're the only ones here that only concentrate on, all I care about is my block or my neighborhood. And there are a few of us that have a global or a broader perspective, a worldly perspective, or even a universal perspective. And one of the things you talked about, and I'm looking at my notes here. Let's see. Yes. Your statement was Black people need to mutate their consciousness to think bigger than just their current circumstances and surroundings. I'm not quoting verbatim, but that's the idea I got. Where too often, if all I see is this over here and that over there, that's all I know. So that's all I can expect. Where others go, hey, let's have a broader perspective. And I understand that you may not necessarily have the same broad perspective. Your focus may be on black people because maybe you realize, hey, if we're going to be able to make it in this world, we have to think on a global level. Hell, I think black people need to think on an intergalactic level. And I say a lot of this to me because I'm not doing all that I should. In fact, I'm not really doing all that I should, and I know I could be doing better. Um, Now, I'll point out that people need to make better choices, but I also recognize that sometimes they may not have the mentality or the mindset to make better choices, depending on where you're from, what your moral foundation is. So that's something that whatever, I guess, energy or vibration you're around, that is the strongest. And it's sort of like Earth's gravitational pull. You need enough rocket thrust to sort of propel yourself away from the gravity of Earth, or at least that's what the astronauts do. So this is something that we as black people need to do, but I understand that is going to be a struggle. So, and a lot of people don't want to struggle. A lot of people want an easy ride. And you made a very good point that instant gratification has long term consequences. Like, we want to get this instant gratification because this desire, this urge, this need is there. But that's it. Um, you also made a good point, and this is something that I found interesting, that black people are very tribal. Like, we have that tribalness within us, and we always seem to just repeat things over and over again. And I noticed that a lot of the African and Middle Eastern cultures are very repetitive, and this is so that I guess things can be retained and remembered and reflected upon and remembered and then taught to the next generation. So, and a lot of times the African and Middle Eastern cultures were oral traditions, like you have the griots and or the bards or whatever. And I do agree that we as black people need to do for ourselves, and we don't collectively. Now there are those pockets of people that do, because you made a point about there's not any, or something to the effect of there's not any economic growth in the black community. And I would partially disagree with you. I think there are pockets of people that are doing well. And I don't mean the sister with a six-figure job only. I mean like black-owned businesses. And I do notice that we're always looking for the hookup. We're not looking to better ourselves or support this business over here or form a business of our own. What we do is we want to find the hookup. Hook me up, hook me up. We haven't done anything to earn the position or the opportunity. We just said, hook me up. So on that one, I'm with you. I'm with you on a lot of these subjects. No one black person should have to be the messiah of the black people. And sometimes to our detriment, we're sitting there waiting for the savior to come somehow straighten us all out. When I think we need to collectively make better choices, and not just one person make a better choice, but each individual make better choices, thereby cementing our place in the world, at the world's table. Um, let's see. It does seem that we don't want to stand up and be counted, where we want to have someone help us, because it is easier to just ride and coast than it is to actually step up and handle your business, so to speak. And we can talk about unity. We can talk about all this wonderful, good black unity. We're not unified. The black community is not a monolithic community. And I will agree that one must match actions with their words. We must practice what we preach. Because you're right. I do believe there are universal truths that teach that you have to work. Just like the Christians say, seed time and harvest. The one person gets the soil ready and then plants the seed. And then you can have a harvest. But until then, don't expect anything if you didn't work for it. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to do like a second part and think of it more like an addendum to what I'm doing right now. So take care. Have a good one.